The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We want to remind you about Wednesdays here on the station. Win Ticket Wednesday. This week, you can win a pair of tickets to go see Brooks and Dunn at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater May 30th. Listen to the KSL Sports Zone all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. Very quickly, because we've got to get to Krysten, Andrew sent us a text or a tweet or whatever we're calling it these days, a snap talk. It says, corrections and retractions, that's an old video. So apparently Weber had Rainn Wilson. If you missed our last segment, he was staying in Ogden and not at the mouth of Parley's Canyon. That's an old video. So thank you, Andrew, for helping us not mislead all the Rainn Wilson fans out there.
Or Weber State fans.
All right, joining us next. She covers the draft for Yahoo Sports. We love it when she has a chance to take a few minutes out of her very busy schedule, especially this time of year, to join us. She is Krysten Peek. What's up, Krysten?
Hey guys. Yeah, like you said, I mean, most people are watching the playoffs. It's officially draft season for me, so I am literally standing at the combine waiting for Bronny to take the court. Everybody's on Bronny James watch. So, yeah, happy to be here.
All right, Krysten, I read your winners and losers from the draft lottery, and I was happy, I think, for Jazz fans to see that the Jazz were not listed amongst your losers, though everyone in Salt Lake felt like yesterday was catastrophic, dropping from 8 to 10 and seeing two teams immediately behind them jumping up to the top four. Give us some perspective on what it means to fall from 8 to 10 in this draft.
I don't think it's that much of a gap as fans think it is, especially in a draft like this, where, yes, there are going to be some good players. There are going to be some dudes. We just don't know where they are yet. There's a lot of uncertainty everywhere in this draft. So to drop from 8 to 10, I don't think for what the Jazz are looking to do, and especially having another first-round pick, shouldn't be a problem.
See, Krysten's in an interesting position here, Ben, because she's actually at the combine, and if we ask her certain questions, she can't be like, yeah, these guys stink.
This Bronny James kid doesn't have it.
She can't do that. She'll get her in trouble. Atlanta hit the lottery, right? They're moving up to number 1. What do you think they're looking at this year?
I think Alex Sarr is probably, if they're going to keep the pick, but we got to, discuss that as well. Right. I think Alex Sarr is probably the best option, someone that they're going to really kind of hone in on the lottery. I'm watching him on the court right now, doing some three-point shooting on and off the dribble. It's called the Star Drill. It's a funny group. It's him, it's Alex Sarr, it's 7'4" Zach Edey, who just airballed a 3, and 7'2" Donovan Clinton. So it's a fun group for scouts here to kind of gauge, these big men, the 3 7-footers projected somewhere in the first or early second round, and how they're going to be in the pick and pop.
I see a pretty general consensus of at least 9 players that seem to go in the top 10 everywhere I look, and have probably been very consistent on your board. How likely is it that, and I can run through them really quickly, Sarr, Riza-Shea, Klingon, Topic, Buzelis, Castle, Holland, Dillingham, Shepard are basically in everybody's top 9. Do you think that's consistent?
Yes.
How likely is it that, a couple of guys jump in and one of those guys were to fall down to 10?
A lot can change in these next 3 days, especially in this year. We see it every year at the draft combine. And, I was walking in with Brian Wright, who's the GM for the San Antonio Spurs. And it's always like, all right, which player is going to be the one to make themselves millions of dollars? Because there's always someone that sneaks up during this week, and teams kind of hone in on. Last year was Brandon Pozinski, who went 19, and Jaime Hawkins Jr., who went 18. The year before it was Jalen Williams, who went all the way up to 12. He's been really productive for the Oklahoma City Thunder. So there are always players like that emerge from the draft lottery, usually in the scrimmage. And in a year like this, I mean, anything can happen. So, yes, those 9 names are very trending towards locks for the lottery. But anything can change. I'm so serious in this draft from now until the end of June.
As someone who's watched Bronny for a long time, were you surprised with his decision, or what did you think about it?
No, not at all. And I know I've told Ben this a lot. I mean, I've covered him for the last 6 years from the time he was in 8th grade. And when, I saw the news that, he's more worried about team fit and not draft stock, and you're looking at the Lakers with the 55th pick in this year's draft, of course that's going to be a target for LeBron James, who has said numerous times that he wants to play with his son in the NBA. That's how he wants to finish his career. Now, he's backtracking a little bit. I think that's just kind of smoke to give Bronny some space to go through this process and be his own man. But I honestly think Bronny's going to walk away one or two ways from this week. He's either going to really shine during the scrimmages, with the NBA spacing and his three-point shooting, or people are going to have to start thinking look, is it worth it to take him and stash him for a chance at LeBron in a farewell tour? So I think those are going to be the questions, but he 100% is going to stay in this draft, and I think he will definitely hear his name called on, the second night.
KP, we've seen some measurements start to trickle out. How do you get those live when you're there? I mean, do you see all the measurements? Have you seen them? And if so, are there any you were looking forward to today?
I don't see the measurements live. We get them, obviously. There's a link on the NBA media page that we can keep track of. The only thing we see live are, like I said, the shooting, the three-quarter sprint, which I guess is like the NBA's version of the 40, which is hilarious for someone like Zach Edey to be running. And then, the speed tests, the shuttle runs, and all the vert tests. That's what we see live. And that's what I'm standing at right now. You can probably hear the clapping in the background.
Was there anyone whose measurements you were interested to see today?
Yes, I was very interested to see Bronny's without shoes. I was surprised by his wingspan, and it makes sense because he is a very, elite defender in the backcourt. Just with his, I think he measured at 6'6" wingspan, but 6'1.5" without shoes. So a far cry from the 6'4" that people kept saying he was as a guard. Which is funny because now I definitely know his younger brother, Bryce James, is not 6'8", because the two of them just posted a video side by side. He looks more like he's 6'4".
You mentioned you're right there. I'm currently watching your video you put out of Zach Edey running that three-quarter court and how they picked that distance. I would love to know. But what use could you actually get out of that? Did you come out feeling that giant man is faster than I thought, or did you just think that's a giant man just lumbering down the court?
I don't think scouts pay any attention to it. It's funny because they put that station right in front of them, so it's they have to glance every now and then to see who's faster, who's got the quick first step. I think that's where when the guards start coming out here, that's when they'll start paying a little bit more attention with him. Just in terms of, who has that motor, who's the fastest. I think Rob Billingham is really going to showcase his speed here in the combine. And, and then after that, they do the shooting on the court, which everyone loves.
All right, I want to ask you about a couple of names specifically that are right in that 9, 10, 11 range, at least right now. Cody Williams with Colorado, who you already talked about, his brother Jalen, and what he did at the Combine a few years ago. And then Ron Holland, who I think is really high on a lot of Jazz fans, I guess boards you would say, that I've seen talk about a lot.
Yeah, with Cody, I mean, if you watched any of his games at Colorado this year, he only played about 3/4 of the season because he was, placated with injury. He had a facial fracture, and then he also had a nagging foot injury, which I'm not too worried about. But the thing with Cody, and I think why teams are so high on him, is he is a slow burn. In a sense, in high school, he was a late bloomer. We didn't know how good he was, and then he just came out of nowhere when he got comfortable within a system. And I think, 1 year at CU with the pressure of being a one and done, you're not going to see him comfortably set into a system. So any NBA team that takes a chance on him, they're going to have to be patient and work with him. But I think his finished product screams upside. Look what his brother's doing. His brother was a little bit more polished coming out of college for the draft. But, I mean, anytime you can kind of see his brother 4 years older, what he's capable of, it's always good, as a benchmark as to what his potential could be.
Krysten has a very helpful draft combine guide, I guess you could say. 7 players to watch, including Bronny James, who we talked about. But give us a little teaser for your article, Krysten, and why maybe you picked some of these players.
I love A.J. Johnson. He was originally committed to Texas and then at the last minute decided to go over to Australia and play for the Illawarra Hawks. He's 6'7". It's funny because he's been training with Jalen Green since he was in 8th grade. They have the same trainer, and they kind of look similar, and everyone thinks they're brothers. They're not brothers, but you can see a little bit of similarities in their game and what AJ has been able to pull from Jalen just being in the gym with him so much. But he's someone, he didn't play a lot of minutes in Australia, so for him to come here and be able to showcase his shooting, he's a little bit taller, he's 6'7", what he can do off the dribble, he can really help himself. And I know he's already had 2 successful workouts prior to this, with the Bucks and the Timberwolves, who are kind of in that late first round, early second round.
Krysten, we love your work. It's great, and seriously, the perfect way to keep up with the Combine. So thank you.
One more question. Sorry,
Yeah.
Krysten, last thing.
Yeah.
Dylan Jones, Jackson Robinson in the scrimmages today also. What are you looking for from them specifically?
So the scrimmages start tomorrow. This is just testing all day today. I ran into Dylan at the hotel, and, the biggest thing that NBA scouts were saying about him and what they wanted to see from the season is to work on his body and kind of lose a little bit of that baby fat. And he looked incredible. So I think, he's someone I'm probably higher on than a lot of people just because I've seen him so much at Weber State. But the scrimmages start tomorrow. I want to say Dylan is on the same team as Bronny and A.J. Johnson, so that'll be a fun group. And Jackson, I haven't seen him out here yet, but I think he's going to get a lot of eyeballs as well, just in terms of his upside and his length.
Thank you, Krysten. We appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, there you go. Krysten Peek, live from the Combine. That was super cool. Draft analyst for yahoosports.com. And a must-follow on the social medias.
Not just at every major college and high school event, but sees these kids before they, are at the Peach Jam and the All-American games, and she's there doing really the ugly work, the not fun work of walking into random high school gyms and following these kids beginning when they're in 9th and 10th grade and then seeing them through. And I will tell you, I've seen her first. She lives in Utah, firsthand. Before Mavericks game, Mark Cuban singled her out and came and found her in the crowd to come talk to her. Like, she is as well connected as anybody you're going to find, and we will keep having her on as long as she remains untapped and doesn't big time us.
Well, we might as well have her on because I just constantly steal her material.
Yeah, she's awesome. Kristen's the best.
Just constantly pass it off as my own.
She's, like we said, very dialed in and always has terrific information. And then it's super relevant because she understands how Utah works. She understands what's going on at the Jazz as well.
So really cool. Really appreciate her jumping on. Man, have you seen that Edie video of him running the 3/4 court?
I have.
Like, what are you learning about that?
Yeah, and again, he played 3 years at Purdue? Has he played 4? Because he had the COVID year. I think he's done 4 years now at Purdue. Like, there's...
What are you going to learn?
150 games of competitive basketball you can watch right now. So, yeah, his combine's not...
Like, have you ever heard NFL coaches actually talk about the drills that they run at the Combine and how unhelpful they are?
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff has got to be just dog and pony show, right? Because you and I both know that the interview and the medicals are like the only reason to go. I mean,
what's
that's
your measurements? What's your measurements? Are you 6'1", LeBron or Bronny James?
Right.
You're not an NBA player. I don't know what to tell you. You're not a big player. You can't be a big-time wing defender and be 6'1".
Well, he's got a 6'6" wingspan, Ben.
Mediocre.
Of course, Bronny's an NBA player.
Well, he's going to get drafted.
Yeah, and he's going to play.
Yeah,
I bet
he'll
you
sign a two-way deal with the
yeah, right,
the
and
Lakers
be on a
next year.
roster at some point. Yeah, he's an NBA player. It won't be because he's good enough. It'll be because LeBron wants to fulfill a childhood dream of playing with Bronny. I actually don't think it's going to happen, though. I think some organization will take a flyer on Bronny thinking LeBron's going to come as a free agent, and then LeBron's going to stay in L.A.
Maybe he has an awesome combine. Again, I told you I've been writing up some of my pre-draft stuff, and I watched a Colorado-USC game the other day, and I kept, Cody Williams keeps jumping off the page, and Tristan DeSilva keeps jumping off the page, and Isaiah Collier keeps jumping off this page, I should say screen, watching it. Halfway through the game, they said, Bronny James grabs the rebound, and I was like, I didn't recognize this dude was in the game for 25 minutes. He was on the floor the whole time. Like, I should know that you're there. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
it's honestly an insult to players who are worthy of being drafted, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And not that Bronny would be the first legacy draft pick, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I'm not buying it.
The thing is, I don't think any team is going to waste a draft pick on him. And I mean that with all due respect. Maybe he plays great and does work himself up the early second round. Here's the thing. Even if he projects as an early second round pick, say the Jazz have the 32nd pick, and all of a sudden Bronny James is in that conversation, you know what they're doing? They're trading it to the Lakers. And the Jazz are going to get better value out of that 32nd pick than they would otherwise simply to satisfy LeBron.
I'm old enough to remember how good Sam Merrill was in college.
Mm-hmm.
Like, great.
Elite, yeah.
I mean, incredible all-conference, all this and that. You know, should have had an NCAA tournament run that last year, but it was taken by the coronavirus.
Yep.
He was the 60th pick.
Mm-hmm.
Now go look at Bronny's stats in college. At USC, he averaged like 5 points a game.
Yeah.
Like, he's not the 60th pick in the draft.
He was like the fourth best player at USC this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Sam Merrill balled out 4 years.
Might not even be fourth best. It might have been further down the list than that.
For years at Utah State. 60th pick. And by the way, has achieved in the NBA about what a 60th pick should. More even. Right? Battled to stay in the league, found a foothold, and has now done a good job carving out a slot for him on a roster. I mean, it's like, he's not the norm, but that's the career path of a 60th pick, right? He was that good in college.
Yeah.
I'm not touching that guy. And that's why I'm
Bronny?
saying.
No.
The only reason he will be an NBA player is because of the headline.
I think so, too.
I find that revolting.
A couple of measurements that have come out from the draft lot, or excuse me, the
Any
combine.
tiny hands?
They're not doing hands yet. A couple of guys that are tiny, but locals. Jackson Robinson, 6'4" and 3/4 without shoes, which is good. That means he's a legit 6'6" in shoes, which is plenty big to play in the NBA. This is a great number. 6'11" and 3/4 wingspan.
Yeah,
almost a
great.
7-foot wingspan.
That'll get you drafted.
Yeah, honestly, if he shoots well in these scrimmages tomorrow, we remember Kyle Kuzma was a mid to late second round pick, played truly one half of basketball at the scrimmage, was awesome, and sat the rest of the game, said, I'm not playing anymore, and ended up as a late first round pick. So a very good start there. Good for him. And you have to get invited to the combine if you want to make it to the NBA draft. And then Weber State forward Dylan Jones, who KP just talked about seeing in the hotel. 6'4.5", so again about 6'6" in shoes, which is fine. He plays more of a front court position than Jackson Robinson, so he's a little small, but 237 pounds.
Yeah.
Absolute tank. And again, a 6'11" wingspan. So not alligator arms, which some of those guys have at smaller schools. You know, they just don't have the right measurements to get these major high D1 offers. But good measurements from both Jackson Robinson and Dylan Jones. I hope they both play well tomorrow in the scrimmage.
All right, Ben, the PGA Championship is this week, which is pretty crazy. That means it's time to get some qualifiers, or a qualifier for the Uinta Golf giveaway for the PGA Championship. Contest winner, you get a new putter, the same brand as the winner of the 2024 PGA Championship. Rory won over the weekend, Ben. So if Rory wins the PGA Championship, you get the brand of putter that Rory putts with.
What do you think he's using?
I don't know, because he ditched Nike years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know who he's with now. Nike ruined his game, though.
Now he's back.
He went from like the next Tiger to just a guy, like overnight as soon as he switched to Nike.
TaylorMade.
TaylorMade, huh?
That's what it looks like.
All right. Stay tuned. We'll have more coming up next. Yeah. You should probably
You have to listen a lot to know the number.
Know the number to call. 801-575-ZONE, caller 12, 801-575-ZONE. More next, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson
1, 2, 3, move it.
on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
In many ways, tell me
Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Want to remind you about the Hercules Hero of the Week. Nominate the sports volunteer you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules Credit Union. Oh, man, who's the Fresno State guy that they did a 30 for 30 on who had the drug issue? Chris Herron? Remember, did you ever see that one?
I don't think so.
Oh, it was so good. Ben and I were just talking off the air about how good some of those 30 for 30s were. I never saw the Pablo Escobar one, which I heard was excellent.
Yeah.
But the Miami Hurricanes one was funny. I mean, for all those people who make the argument that college athletes were getting paid anyway, so you might as well do it, which I always thought that argument was stupid, and I still do. But maybe that's evidence for you, because they were so blatant about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I didn't like it then. I don't like it now.
It's the system is rapidly evolving, and I saw an interesting tweet today that I think I totally agree with. We're talking about Great Osobor making $2 million today from Washington. This is the day after the NBA salary cap jumped from whatever it was, like $80 million to $120 million. And we all remember
when they didn't
Kevin Durant leaving.
Yeah.
That's kind of the one that gets talked about. But all of these guys who got
these bozos just got paid crazy money. Nick Batum.
Yeah, I mean, guys, it was like, I don't remember if it was Bismack Biyombo, but it was like in those realms
all
of
these
guys.
randoms that just happened to be free agents at the time.
Hit free agency.
Which is why I bet the Players Union opts for smoothing it this time when they go into the new TV deal. I know that's not where you're going.
No,
but like that was such a disaster. Like the union didn't get paid or the players didn't get paid. It was just like 15 random bozos that just happened to be free agents
and
at
it
the right
wasn't the best
time.
players. It was just, we have all this money. We've got to spend money.
Go.
And they all did. And it was insane.
Otto Porter, wasn't he one of them?
Who was the center for the Cavaliers who got paid? Mozgov. Right.
The Lakers?
Didn't he get some crazy deal because he had played well with the Lakers? And
he played well with Cleveland
and went to the Lakers and
then
got
signed with the Lakers. Yeah.
4 years, $70 million. Just something absurd.
Yeah, right.
That made no sense. But everyone had all this money and they thought, well, this is just the going rate now.
Let's spend it.
So that might be where Great Osobor is right now, where we have not
right time.
Put any restrictions
His coach
on
got the right job.
NIL. We are not doing revenue sharing yet between the TV deal, which once you start doing that, one of the things colleges are going to want is to regulate NIL more because you're getting money from the TV deal, so you're going to be under a contract and a type of employee, and we get to regulate then where else you can earn money. You are going to see at least an attempt to regulate that.
I don't think so. Who is going to do this?
Well, the colleges want to.
No, they don't.
The colleges do want to regulate how much
the colleges that matter don't.
No, but the rest of the schools will.
But this is the basic tenets of all this stuff. The haves are trying to kick loose the have-nots. I bet you, Ben, before we see that, I bet you we see the Big Ten and the SEC jettison colleges.
Split off entirely,
or totally rework their own deals where only the blue bloods make the money. Like the people who are making the decisions don't want any part of that, Ben. You know who wants a cap on Washington spending? Utah. You know who's not running the show? Utah. And I'm just picking Utah because they're local. But I'm talking about, BYU isn't calling the shots either. The Big 12 isn't calling the shots. The big leagues plucked what they wanted out of the Big 12. So their opinion doesn't matter. So who's going to do this regulating? It's certainly not going to be Congress, and that's whose job it actually is, believe it or not. And they're not going to do it because they can't even agree that the sky is blue.
Right.
So that's not going to happen. So I want to know who's going to step in and do this phantom regulating. It's not the NCAA.
Well, they don't have any power.
Exactly. They've totally been, I don't know. What's the best word? Every thing that's coming to my mind is not appropriate. They've been neutered. There you go. They've been successfully neutered over the past 30 years.
Yeah.
So who's going to do it? I don't think it's going to be you.
You have names like Nick Saban pushing for it. Now, Nick Saban doesn't matter anymore. With all due respect, he's going to be great on College game day. Doesn't matter. He's a big voice, but he's not going to have any sway on what the colleges actually do anymore. In fact, I'm sure one of the reasons he left was because he hated doing all this stuff. So unless it gets to a point, you're right, where every coach just hates it so bad that they were all to jump on board and say it's got to happen, there will still be the elite of the elite and the weak links in the chain who say, no, we'll pay whoever, whatever it takes because that's good for my job. The Will Wades of the world will always say, yeah, we'll pay whatever it takes and that's good for me.
You're also pretending like the coach's opinion matters.
Correct.
It doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
In fact, all the coaches, and I feel comfortable with his opinion, all of them hate it. They would all agree with you, but their opinion doesn't matter. Mike Slive's opinion matters. And you know who he's getting his opinion from? Georgia, Alabama, Florida.
Yeah. Well,
all
and again,
those big blue blood schools, now Texas, he's getting his opinion from them, and they don't want to regulate anything.
well, and the problem is, where are they getting their opinions from? The donors.
They're big donors.
They're donors.
The people piling over millions of dollars.
Yes, we can put faces to it. The thing is, I don't know who just paid Great Osobor $2 million.
This is so awful.
But somebody did.
And now somebody
that
owns
is the
him.
person who makes the decision. Because guess who
Yes.
else's money they
own
contract
him
they paid?
and the program.
And Danny Sprinkle. Right? Like, they will say when Danny Sprinkle's time to go. They will say when it's Danny Sprinkle's time to get an extension. They get all of that stuff.
And
so you're right.
And those jock sniffers love that power, so they're not going to give it up.
And they're totally unregulated.
So they let the cat totally out of the bag when they should have eased themselves into the pool, if they should have done anything at all. But God, that feels like a ridiculous argument now, doesn't it? But no, this isn't changing anytime soon. Everybody's just hoping it's going to change, that cooler heads will prevail because they somehow think it's about fairness. It's now really not about fairness at all. You think the University of Michigan or Ohio State's going to be like, yes, let's cap our ability to be better than everybody else? Never.
Yeah.
Never.
Especially the donors. Especially the people who want to be at Arkansas and want to pay John Calipari and his dudes however much they want, and they can hide behind the scenes. And while you and I will scoff at $2 million as an unfathomable amount of money for a player like Great Osobor, the amount of money that exists clearly that these people are willing to spend to have these players represent their school, for them to be able to go golfing and say, I cut that check. Great Osobor's my guy. That's my money. I'm the face. Technically, really the voice and the power behind this school, that really matters. And to your point, they will not want to be regulated because they like that ability to get whatever they get out of that. And I have seen it up close and personal. You have seen it up close and personal. People spend crazy amounts of money to be close to these athletes, even though it's college athletes. It is weird. I've always thought it was strange, but we've seen it for a long time.
Ryan Smith probably gets to weigh in on a lot of stuff for BYU basketball, I'm guessing. And I'm just picking him because he's publicly a BYU basketball donor. His opinion is probably listened to.
Absolutely. Of course.
Now, that opinion helped you land Kevin Young, I'm betting. But another reason it's listened to. So does that person use their power for good or evil?
You better hope you have a good one.
And are they smart?
Yeah, you better hope you have a good donor.
Because T. Boone Pickens probably had a lot of sway over there at Oklahoma State, rest his soul, and they never won anything.
You might end up with Alex Morello, who doesn't know how to run a hockey team. Or you might end up with Ryan Smith, who can bring a hockey team in and rebuild an arena and reform downtown. You just don't know, right? That's the guess. That's the hope, is that you have a billionaire who has some idea of how to put one foot in front of the other. And if you end up with Alex Morello, you're not going to say no to the money.
But amateurism was just so terrible. I mean, it was so terrible,
Well, I'll tell you who's not for amateurism right now. Great Osobor, who's $2 million richer and is thrilled about it.
Good for him, I guess.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm happy for those arguments always get made too often. Like, fine, I'm happy for Great Osobor, the person. He took advantage of something. But as a college sports fan, this is not good for the sport. It's not for sports. It's not good for fans, in my opinion, unless you're a fan of the 6 schools that make all the decisions.
And we haven't even gotten to the point yet where it's really having a huge impact on the pro leagues, but it's going to, because there's a huge difference from giving a kid his first paycheck and giving a kid his third paycheck, right?
Yeah.
So you're drafting kids now who got their first paycheck to commit to Ohio State, Ewers, get their second paycheck to transfer to Texas, and then go to the NFL saying, well, I've got $4 million in the bank already. I actually don't need you as the team that much. End of the first round roster.
Oh, Great Osobor will take a huge pay cut.
Yeah, he will.
When he goes to the NBA.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark took a huge pay cut.
Yeah.
To go
Now
to
made
the
up
WNBA.
with the Nike sponsorship.
But what about everybody lets that stuff off the hook with the sponsorship dough, like it was one or the other.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess if Nike would have given her that money at Iowa, maybe they would have.
They absolutely would have. And how about a good salary and then the sponsor? I don't know. Anyway, but I guess you want to play at the highest level. What's that worth to you? But yeah, you're going to see that a ton. You'll see it more in football. Like if Cam Rising makes the NFL, he's taking a huge pay cut.
Huge pay cut. Yeah. Christian just texted us a tweet from a CBK report, college basketball report. Great Osobor, receiving north of $2 million, is making more than Andrew Nemhart, who I think he starts for the Pacers right now. At least he's been a big part of that series. Aaron Wiggins, who's been a big player for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Jose Alvarado with the New Orleans Pelicans. Trace Jackson Davis, who was the end of the season as the starting center for the Golden State Warriors. And Jalen Williams, not J-Dub, but the other Jalen Williams at OKC.
Mark, here's my prediction for you. Before any of this is regulated, I would bet that somebody sues for the right to stay in the NCAA. It should have been Caitlin Clark, but I bet you somebody sues.
Well, she could have stayed, but yeah.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But somebody sues and says, why can you limit me to just 4 years or
if
5
it's no
years
longer
to play 4?
amateurism.
It's not amateurism anymore.
If I can get paid, why don't I just stay in college?
Why
and make more
can't
money
I stay here? You're preventing me from making a living. Nobody thinks about this stuff.
Oh, people think about it. Of course
No,
they think about
they
it.
Absolutely do not.
Somebody thought about it. You're not the first person to think about it, but you're right.
That's
There are going to be legal
not what I'm
issues.
saying. People don't think about the consequences. They just think about whatever they're passionate at the time. It's not about, okay, what happens when we throw
What's
this
the
cat?
fallout?
What happens when we throw this cat back there?
Yeah.
Or let this tiger out of the cage?
It's-
I mean, what's going to happen?
It's truly Pandora's box.
Don't lock up the tiger.
Yeah.
And then you think, well, the tiger's probably locked up for a reason. There's probably a pretty good reason why, let's just let it out.
Yeah.
How bad could it be?
Well, the problem was...
I'm not saying I'm some sort of visionary. I'm just saying that people do, like, especially in this one, we went to such an extreme. Nobody, and you can blame it on courts or politicians or the NCAA or the universities themselves. Nobody really thought, what happens when this cat's out of the bag?
How quickly it would escalate.
And what would be the ramifications?
Man, and do you know how many teams just hate that number for Great Osobor came out?
Hate it.
Because now that's the going rate for a good player.
Because the kid who's coming into Utah, and again, not to pick on Utah, but they did the trucks, and you wheel out your trucks. You say, look at this sweet truck. They're going to say, yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
maybe the 18-year-old or 17.
I don't know. I saw Great Osobor get $2 million.
Maybe the 17-year-old doesn't know how to ask for it, but his dad, who's been working for 25 years and doesn't want to go to work the next day, knows how to ask for $2.5 million and says, I saw my son's better than Great Osobor.
Yeah, that truck is pretty cute, but
right?
What kind of dough is going to hit my bank account?
Yeah. I mean, the perfect name would be Brandon Carlson, who's forced out of college basketball right now.
Not going to
get drafted. Might sign with a G League team.
Or go overseas, where he won't make as much money as he would have at Utah.
Might get $750,000, $1 million to go play at Kentucky next year if he wanted to.
I'd sue.
Yeah. Be like, you're taking my ability to earn away, and other people are earning money to do exactly what I'm doing. And I know right now Great Osobor is doing it for name, image, likeness, but at some point, once you start making these guys employees, which feels somewhat inevitable,
you can't limit them to just...
You're going to have those types of lawsuits.
You can't limit them to just 4 years. Imagine if there was some sort of government regulation on you, Ben. You could only do 4 years of sports radio.
Well, it is exciting to watch. Oh, I would sue.
Absolutely, you'd sue. 100%. All right, stay tuned.
I'm still trying to use my student ID to get discounts at movie theaters.
And
I
on
should
the bus.
start getting lawsuits.
Wow, this looks really old, and
I'm
you look
trying to
really
get to
young.
the master's program.
Stay tuned.
This is 08.
More next, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two niggas on the airways, talking sports. They got him and Jackson on soul. Loves his tie guy, Ben's got style with his scarf. Oh my.
Jake and Ben, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. Want to remind you about Peach Doors and Windows, Utah's premier door and window retailer, combining beauty and technology on doors and windows since 1993. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255, Peach Doors and Windows. Ben, the PGA Championship is this week. That means it's time for another qualifier for the Uinta Golf giveaway. Be caller 12 right now, 801-575-ZONE. Christian's going to assign you a golfer. If that golfer wins, you get the same brand of putter that golfer plays with. So 801-575-ZONE, we're going to assign you a golfer.
Win. Have better luck than the Jazz in the lottery. Right?
Yeah, I'm sure. But it is kind of lottery-esque, isn't it? Like,
Absolutely.
I wonder what the chances are. I mean, obviously better with some players than others. Like if you land Scotty Scheffler, like
You're feeling good.
He's really good. But honestly, what % chance does he have of winning?
Every tournament, you take the field over the player.
One of I hated that cliche so much. Do you take Tiger or the field? I mean, any gambler would tell you.
The field.
You take the field every time.
Easily. Yeah.
So there is a little lottery aspect to it, right? And even when those randoms win, and I guess randoms win the U.S. Open more than the PGA Championship usually, but when the randoms win, some listener won. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And they probably had a 2% chance going into the tournament. Again, the Jazz were victims of horrible luck.
Yep.
Unless you're like me and believe that it's rigged.
Oh, you think it's rigged?
I
don't know if you'd give the Hawks the number one pick.
know. I think you can make the argument that some years have been rigged. I don't know if I believe that. That's one of those things like I could talk
I'm a
myself
little more
into it if I
inclined to
really
believe
try.
in the frozen envelope.
Yeah.
For Patrick Ewing and the Knicks. I am a little bit more inclined to believe that than what is currently going on.
And then the Cavs getting Kyrie after LeBron left.
And Wiggins.
And the NBA sells the Pelicans to the Bensons, and all of a sudden they get Anthony Davis. Like some stuff that was just really convenient. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, I'd just be talking myself into it. But the Jazz had bad luck.
Yep. And the Hawks had great luck. 3%. I mean, 3% chance to move up to the number one pick
Hot
is
dog.
nothing. 3%. Unbelievable. So congrats to Quinn Snyder.
I guess. I told you, I think there's actually a downside to having the number one pick.
Oh, in this pick, there
in
absolutely
a draft like this, because people don't get the nuance. So you just think number one pick, okay, this guy's got to be
a star.
Got to be a star, and it just
The
doesn't
problem is
always work out that way.
you have to invest X amount of time into Alex Sarr, who I think is going to be the number one pick. This French kid who played in Australia last year, and he's good. I mean, he's really intriguing. I get it. If he is not good enough, you have to put 4 years into him to understand how good he is, and you have to let him play 20 to 30 minutes a year.
A game.
Excuse me.
A year.
More than that. Well, if Quinn Snyder had his way, that's how many the young guys would play. Outside of Donovan Mitchell, he didn't always love playing young guys all that much.
Well, you're just still bitter over Jared
Butler. Yeah, I am.
He was the difference that year.
Probably was. So you have to invest X amount of time into these guys, and then if they're not good, you have to hit the reset button again, and that's the hard part is that, the Jazz can say, oh, well, if Taylor Hendricks isn't good, you move on, and it's actually relatively low cost. Like, it stinks. It cost you a year. That was your pick. You wanted all that. But you don't have to mold in the entire season around Taylor Hendricks. In fact, they didn't last year, and if they didn't last year, they won't next year. They dedicated time to Taylor. They let him play the second half of the season. They gave Keontae George a lot of time. If they decide next year he's not the best option, they won't play him as much as they did. You can't do that with the number one overall pick. You just can't. There's too much pressure.
Got to
too
play
much
him.
investment.
Yeah.
Even if you were had the 10th best odds and you moved up to number one, there's still that much pressure for him to be a franchise changer.
And maybe it works out.
And maybe it does. Yeah, you would rather have it than not have it.
How about the Pistons' worst record in the NBA and picking it 2 years in a row?
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean,
Come
and that's the
on.
other part of it. That's the other part of it, where we will hear about the Jazz not tanking hard enough for Victor Wembanyama over and over. The Jazz are a bad luck franchise. I don't know what to tell you. You think they would have won Victor Wembanyama?
No.
They fell to 10 from 8.
Yeah.
They had a 6% chance.
Bad luck.
They had a much better chance of moving to 4 or 3 than they did of falling to 10.
It's Chevy Chase during Vegas vacation
In
at the
all the
blackjack
vacations,
table
yeah.
with the bald guy.
Yeah.
From Princess Bride. He's like, hey, how about you give me half your money you're going to lose? I'll take you out back.
Wallace Shawn.
Kick you in the beans, and we'll call it a day. That scene is so great when he's at the table and the table's hot and the he's flipping them. He's like,
Yeah.
blackjack, 24, blackjack.
Well, the Jazz have been 24 in the lottery too often in their life.
So funny. But you know what? It is what it is.
Yep, it is.
You can make an argument about karma. Atlanta didn't tank, so karma. The basketball gods rewarded them. Whatever. The NBA wanted another player with Shaq in Orlando, so they gave him the number 1 pick 2 years in a row.
Yeah. Either way, Jazz picking a 10. At least that's the plan.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
Got to go. They just have to find a guy. What Zanuck said is the most true thing about this draft is wherever that player is, a little harder to find this time, and then you do what you got to do to go get him, period.
Yeah. I
personally
have a lot of hot takes on the draft.
I think that guy's Bronny.
You want Bronny at 10?
I think it's Bronny at 10. It's like Bronny and everybody else.
6'1" Bronny James.
Nobody will see it coming. You're shaking your head like, yeah, great idea.
That's the guy.
Stay tuned. Hans and Scott here coming
thanks,
up next.
Christian.
Talking to you tomorrow. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.